great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So let's begin our journey with this. 6 years ago, this pandemic was changing our lives, changed the world. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you approach life today?
Yeah, I don't know, Joe. I think what's true is during the pandemic, I was pastoring a church, and my family and I had literally just moved to a new area. We moved across the state of Iowa to launch a second campus of a church. So a really large church was going to take a church that was dying, let it die, and then start a second campus of this really large church. And I was going to be the campus pastor of this second church. And we launched that January 1st of 2020, which is the most amazing timing.
Yeah.
I look back and we were doing something that was really hard from a leadership perspective. My family, we moved on December 7th of 2019 into a community we knew no one in. So we're doing a hard thing from a leadership standpoint. We're doing a hard thing from a family standpoint, and then the world closes. And all through it, like I still had to lead. I still had to lead my congregation, my leaders. I think my love as a pastor in that season was helping my leaders navigate their own anxiety. That was where I learned that I love that work. I don't know that I would have found that I love that work. That's why I'm doing what I do today. But I think to your, like, a shorter answer is, do you know the word counter systems, Joe?
Yes. Yeah.
I implemented a series of counter systems that allowed me to get out of the system that was so anxious and into a system that allowed me to, like, take a breath and allowed me to gain perspective and ask the question, like, what's true? What's really going on? What do I need?
I got married in July of 2019, and we decided real fast to get our house on the market and move. And we moved in January to a new
Mm,
community. So those kinds of things. But I remember feeling so thankful that it happened then, because if it would have happened anywhere during that pandemic, that was another industry that got turned on its head, was real
yeah,
estate, you know?
yeah,
So,
yeah, 100%. We sold a house. We sold a house in February of 2020.
wow.
And I can get a little angry if I look back and see what that house would be worth today
Yeah. Right.
versus the housing market in February 2020, at least where we were.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I can't change those. They're points in time.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into your modern world of coaching and all the good work you're doing. I'm going to put you in front of 13-year-olds. It's career day, and the kid in the back of the room wants to know what you do for a living. How do you explain it?
I help people be their most authentic self in places of leadership, which I think everybody leads something, and I help people show up as the person they want to be.
So I'm hearing more and more, there's so many coaches out there that are helping people get to that authentic place. And that's kind of the catchword, is authentic. So
Yeah,
my question to you is this. Do we just get buried by the avalanche of being alive on this planet for enough time where we literally just have the fog of war in our heads? And we need to have somebody, because, coaches, I remember in high school and otherwise, when you have a coach, those are the ones that will be the objective observers. They will find you. They're the flashlight in the dark room. Is
yeah.
that kind of, in this age of awakening and all of the confusion of this modern era, is that what's going on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I want to caveat just a little bit. I mean, I want to define authenticity first, if that's okay.
Sure, please.
I think there's a myth that says authenticity is like, hey, Joe, I might lose my cool and lash out at you because I have a short temper. That's just who I am. Like, I think there's a myth that that's authenticity. I actually don't think that's authenticity.
Yeah.
I think authenticity is aligning my life and leadership with who I've decided that I want to be and how I've decided I want to be. I think that's authenticity,
Yeah.
which I heard you say some of those same words. Yeah, I approach coaching in a similar way. I think our practices approach says that, yes, you and I can get buried under I love the avalanche metaphor. Yes, there's a lot to bury us. And the solution to unburying, or the solution to thriving, it's already in you. It's already in me. My job as a coach is to help you get the snow off the top of you
Yeah,
so that you can see the solution. I don't have the solution to getting Joe unburied or unstuck.
sure.
You do. So I can help you get to it. I think my role is to ask good questions. As you said, somebody that's outside of the system, outside of the grind, to be able to say, here's a good question. What do you think of this? And maybe that gets more and more snow off top of you if we want to use the avalanche metaphor.
Well, and for a couple guys like us that have been around for a while with families and kids and we've seen things, I think you get to a point where you have this dream. And, yours was obviously faith-based, it still is, but you've segued. And if you didn't do that, it wouldn't have led to this clairvoyance that you have in
Yeah.
this level of life right now. And
Yeah.
that's finding your authentic purpose and self.
Yeah, 100%. There was a really clear moment, Joe, when I realized during the pandemic, like I love helping leaders be more authentically who they want to be. I love helping the leader who is like frantic and anxious and just wanting to spout off. Like, no, how do you want to show up? I love that work. And there was a point where that work became less and less because the culture that I helped build it became better and better.
Yeah.
So then there has to be a shift of like, if this is who I want to be and how I want to be, I need to find ways to live into that. And I think that's a shift that all of us face in the course of our lives, where we either get clear or priorities change, or we start to understand who and how we want to be. And yeah, we have to take some steps to say, I might have to take some agency to live into that more clearly.
And I think when you're young, thinking about going through all of these different career changes and changes in life is daunting. But I
Yeah.
think when you get older and look in the rearview mirror and look at where you're at, it's awesome that we have this opportunity to start out as this kind of mold that gets kind of rearranged and we get to find out what our place is because it's a journey. I mean, the whole ride's a journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe, are you from the Midwest originally?
Yeah, Kansas City through and
Okay.
through.
Yeah. So you'll appreciate this. I mean, there is a Midwest, I'm going to say mental model, like a way of thinking that used to think like stability and security are king in careers and journeys. The 40-year career, the 40-year pension or retirement plan. Obviously, all that stuff changed, and I think it's really good that we've made that shift to say the journey is good, and I'm not sure we ever arrive. And letting some of that stability and kind of 40-year career mindset go is actually really helping us be more authentic.
Yeah, I mean, I love this new Gen Z mentality of being their own entrepreneur and bosses and
Yeah.
kind of chartering their own courses. And if things don't work out, they just move on to the next thing. But I think there's a level of courage and grit. It's like the previous generations that would join the military. Like today, you don't hear about stars. Like Elvis went on missions while he was a big shot. Ted
Yeah.
Williams went on missions and came
Yeah.
back and played. We don't see those examples. And I almost feel like these younger generations are going in with some level of fearlessness and confidence that we all can learn from that have been around for a while longer.
Yeah, I love those. Those are great examples, Joe. I love that so much. I don't know that I've ever equated Elvis and Ted Williams into that sort of
Yeah.
model. I love that. That's really cool.
I'm listening to a book on Don Rickles. I've always loved his comedy and he went in the Navy. And I'm just thinking about how there are so many of those old world stars that literally went into combat
Yeah.
while they were at the height of their powers and then came back home. It was a different generation, different world,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
100%.
So, let me ask you this. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream job?
That's a that's a good question. I think I always have really liked cars. As a kid, I wanted to make cars cool. Like I wanted to make cars look cool. I don't know what I ever expected that to be, but like I was the kid. I would paint my Matchbox cars. I would paint my bicycle. I would do all these things to like make these things look good, and they didn't. Uh, but I always wanted to like learn and grow into that. That was sort of my trajectory, and I still would love to tinker more than I do,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was kind of the goal early on for me.
I remember growing up with Dungeons and Dragons, and there was kids that would paint those little figurines, and it was
Yeah,
amazing. And I was like, "How are you doing that?" It's
yeah,
this tiny little thing that's ornate. It's pretty cool for sure. So what were the building blocks that were woven into you growing up that allowed you to have this level of faith and coaching and business acumen? What were all these things that were a part of your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest is like a hard work ethic. I grew up in a blue collar family. My dad retired from a job, like I said earlier, from a 40-year career, and worked a ton of hours and a ton of overtime, which isn't all positive, right?
Yeah,
Nothing's all positive.
yeah.
But I remember just having this work ethic ingrained. My folks were volunteer custodians at a church. So there's a mix of work ethic and sort of giving up, of time for a greater good purpose, that sort of thing. And I think honestly, like those things started really early. I had a paper route as a kid. I mowed yards, and I think all those things just over time, the shadow kind of works out from the light, and you keep the good parts of those teachings. You let the shadow go a little bit, and I think those are the things I'm most grateful for is the work ethic and the sort of like find a way to contribute to a greater good.
So who has been that inspirational force in your life that's allowed you to navigate throughout your career to find your place right now?
Yeah, I have a friend. He's actually my business partner. I've known him for a long time. He and I went to seminary together, but he was my first coach. And the thing that has stuck with me over the years is I called him one day, and I was complaining about a group of people that I was trying to lead. This is over a decade ago. I called him and I said, like, these people are the worst. I'm just like railing on this group of people. And he listened like a really good friend. And then he paused and he said, Kurt, let me ask you, what part are you playing in this? And I'm like, shut up. I just told you, like,
Yeah.
I just told you I'm not playing a part. It's this group of people. And he asked it again very gently and very kindly. And I think that moment was a moment and a person that started to shift. He and I have been friends long before we coached together. And I think that was a moment where that moment of mentoring really shifted how I saw the world, how I saw myself, how I thought about leadership and my presence in the world.
So we talked a little bit about baseball before we got on, about all of the stadiums and fields that are in Iowa and the Royals and just that kind of lore. But when you look at like coaching and mentoring, who have you admired, whether it was sports or otherwise?
Yep, yep. I have I have two. So I had a baseball coach when I was a kid. I played baseball as a kid. Um, Yeah, his name's Bruce, and I don't know that I can tell you why Bruce was significant, but Bruce's kid was in my grade, so I was always on Bruce's team, right? He was always coaching his kid, and I was always with his kid. And I think Bruce is the first coach that I remember seeing me, if that's if
I get
that's
that.
yep.
Yeah.
I was not good. I was a Midwest kid who loved baseball,
Yeah.
but I was not a superstar. But I think Bruce saw me as a kid worth being seen, right? Um, I think the other one that stands out, a guy named Jim Harrington, and I love to shout out Jim Harrington. He is a leadership coach that my first sort of real pastoral gig, the church I worked for, paid for me to have Jim Harrington as coach, and he poured into me in ways that I just have a hard time even articulating.
Yeah.
He was the person to ask a gentle question at the right time. He sort of, for the first time in my Midwest brain, helped me understand that I get to decide the ratio of work I do to pay the rent and work I do because I love it.
Yeah.
He was the first one to kind of help me like unpack like I do have ridiculous control over how I spend my life. Yeah, Jim and Bruce, but Jim Harrington for sure. Huge shout out for Jim.
There's some of those people, yeah, growing up that you may not really remember their names. I remember there was a coach and pitching machine that I had, and there was a kid that was terrified that he was going to get hit by a ball.
Mm,
And he just said, "Step away." He went back there and he stood there and he said, "Throw the ball." And the ball went boom and hit him right in the chest. And he was like, "Look, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Get in there and hit the ball." And it's
yeah,
those little moments,
yeah,
that
yeah.
that just stick in your brain. So, what is the energy for you every day? Because when you're coaching, when you're getting into people's lives, there can be murkiness. There's things that you have to work through. How do you shield yourself from getting too absorbed in that world, but do a good job to help them You have a family and a soul to take care of. How is all that holistically working for you every day?
Yeah, I mean, I think two things are real. I'm not a therapist, and I think my time as a pastor helped me be really clear. Like, I'm not a therapist, and there's a line where my my boundary end. Like, I come to an end of my skills, and I need to let other people find other places for for what they need help with. So I think number one, knowing what I'm capable of and what my skills and training allow me to do keeps me from taking on too much, right? It keeps me from getting into waters that could be harmful for either me or for the client. So holding that really clear is so important to us, to be able to say, hey, here's what I can do with you and for you, uh, and and I'm going to have to like refer somewhere else. So that's number one. Yeah, counter systems. I said that word again the other day. Just having counter systems where I give myself margin to reflect regularly. I give myself margin between client sessions where I get to like take notes and kind of set things like get things out. Right. I can record. I can take notes. I can do all those things, and now I can let that be. Kind of knowing what's my responsibility and what's a client's responsibility, I think is huge in that.
So, being a man of faith, growing up in the Midwest, there's a lot because we're in the Bible Belt where we will be taught the scriptures and we're around it all the time, but we
Yeah.
all have individual journeys and we
Yeah.
all feel God in a very specific way. What was a moment in your personal narrative where you knew without a doubt there was a level of empiricism that you knew God existed?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joe. I've never told this on a podcast, but I'm about to tell the story because it's such a
Awesome.
great question. So I told you my family and I moved to a new place right before the pandemic, and if I'm most honest, I was pretty angry at how that went down.
Yeah.
I didn't love the place for a long time. I didn't love the people for a long time. I missed friends. I missed places. I missed that single A ballpark I told you about.
Yep.
Like I was angry. I was angry at God, and I didn't like any of it. I didn't want to be here. Um, my mentor, my supervisor, he asked me some questions, and I remember what he said that sometimes, as much as we as pastors, as much as we talk about who God is and what God is like, I can say the words God is our comforter, but until I need to be comforted, I don't really understand what that means.
Yeah.
And it was in that season where I didn't like the place we were. I didn't like the people that I was around. I didn't want to be here. Um, it was in that time where I allowed myself to feel that and name it, that in ways that are beyond how I know to understand. I felt comfort. Um, I think there's something about feeling those things like we're going through a tunnel, like letting those things be felt through.
Yeah.
But I found that to be true, that if I allowed myself to feel it and be present with it, comfort came in ways that I'd never felt before because I hadn't ever really needed to be comforted.
That's huge. I remember a friend telling me at one point that he always had problems going to his in-laws. And he
Mm,
finally got to a point where he went in with no expectations. And
mm,
that's the bane of being a human being is we have all these
yeah,
ideas. And if we
yeah.
just wipe it clean and walk in, like I always think travel is like the afterlife. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I'm going in with good intentions and I'm
Yeah.
hoping for magic, right?
I love that.
You're just going in and you're going to have a good time. You're in a new place. So that's the mystery of being on this planet. There's so
Yeah,
many things that
yeah,
we just don't know, but good intentions are a pretty good way of starting out,
yeah, yeah.
for
Love
sure.
that.
So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight and ran into that young version of you that wanted to paint cars and be in that automotive world, and you walked into the room at your age now and there was a film projector and you hit play and a 60-second highlight reel of the life you've lived came up there, would that young version of you believe your life turned out this way?
No way, Joe. No way. No, I don't think 5 years ago Kurt would believe my life turned out this way.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, no, no.
Would you have any advice?
Yeah, yeah. So, yes, and this is a question I think about often because this is a question I might ask some clients. Because I think imagining we can tell ourselves something at a younger, I think is a huge part of healing and a huge part of maybe like accepting some of the places we are. Yeah, I think I would tell younger version of me to lighten up a little bit, to like let life happen a little bit.
Yeah.
Younger version of me just had a hard time not like knowing answers and having structure and feeling really safe and secure. And I don't know that all those are bad, but they certainly weren't. They're not what's ahead of younger Kurt.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, of everything that you've done in your life, everything you've overcome and accomplished, what are you ultimately the happiest about, the proudest of?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I, hmm. Yeah, boy, Joe, I wasn't ready for that question.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things I'm proud of, and even being able to say that out loud, I'm proud of.
Yeah,
uh, I have a couple really great kids,
yeah,
that for a while I thought one of them might just live under a bridge and sell art, and maybe she will still, and
yeah,
we're gonna love her even if she does that.
yeah.
She'd be great at it, but like just to see, I have teenagers, and to see them kind of turn into humans, like
Hmm.
adult humans, is
Hmm.
is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I think, again, because you ask such a good question, my transition out of pastoral ministry, um, I'm really proud of it. I'm proud of my own handling of it. I'm proud of the place that I left and the state that I left it in. I'm proud of relationships that had been and still are. That's a hard thing to do, and I'm actually really proud of it.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone in all these different bubbles, but you run the show. What's
Yeah.
your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Yeah. Well, I'm a nine Enneagram people pleaser. Do you know the Enneagram, Joe?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So saying anything about who I think I am is pretty tough.
Yeah.
Um, I think if I hold up a mirror, what I want to see, what I think I hope I see, is someone who is simply faithful, and and I think faithful. That's probably not even as spiritual as I want to make it, or that's probably more spiritual than I want to make that even. But someone who is aligned with who and how they want to be. Period.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think I care about success at this stage of life. I honestly don't care if I, or I don't think I care about status or the things that I once cared about. I think I want to be most aligned with who I want to be.
Well said. So if anybody's ready for the next step, they want to reach out, they want to consult, they want to get coaching, how do they do that? Where do they go?
Yeah, our website is brimstonecoachinggroup.com. And on there, there's like click a free button or click a button to get a free inquiry, just to have a chat. We know that our coaching philosophy isn't for everybody. So we want to offer a free, no obligation, like, hey, let's get on the same page. We have a podcast called Live Fully, Lead Authentically. People can check us out there wherever they get their podcasts. We also have a book. It's over the shoulder here.
Nice.
Also called Live Fully, Lead Authentically. Probably just the easiest, most impersonal way to see who we are and why we do what we do and how we do what we do.
I love it. I will put all these links in the show notes. Kurt, thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Best of luck with everything.
Thanks, Joe. Great talk.
Yes, thank you.